Jack Ma's Ant Group went public in China and Hong Kong in early November, but the world's largest IPO in history was suspended at the last minute after news broke that Jack Ma had been interviewed by the Chinese Communist Party authorities. The once richest Chinese man who founded Alibaba, a competitor to Amazon, had disappeared amid a rapid shift to the left in China's political climate and a massive state takeover of private companies. On December 31st, multiple media reported that the Chinese government is seeking to continue to shrink Jack Ma's tech and financial empire and is planning to take more stakes in his companies, including fintech giant Ant Group Company. This echoes Xi Jinping's policy of Guojin which means the state enterprises advance, the private sectors retreat. In other words, the communist government is gradually taking over Chinese private enterprises. Let's start by recalling that the day before Ant Group's IPO on November 2, 2020, Jack Ma, Chairman Jing Xiaodong, and President Xu Xiaoming were subjected to a regulatory interview by the top management of the Communist Party of China. The next day, Ant Group's IPOs in China and Hong Kong were suspended. What caused all this? At the Bund Financial Summit in Shanghai on October 23rd, Ma made some sharp criticisms of official financial policies.
中国不是金融系统性风险，因为中国金融基本上没有系统，而是中国是缺乏金融系统的风险。第二个观点，创新是一定要付出代价的，我们这代人必须有所担当。创新主要来自于市场，创新来自于基层，创新来自于年轻人。对监管的挑战越来越大。其实监和管是两回事情，监是看着你发展，关注你发展，管是有问题的时候或预判有问题的才去管。但是我们现在管的能力越来越强，监的能力明显不足。好的创新不怕监管，但是怕昨天的方式去监管。
At a meeting of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China held on December 11th, it was explicitly proposed for the first time to strengthen anti-monopoly and prevent the disorderly expansion of capital. 3 days later, Alibaba Investment Limited and two other companies were fined 500,000 yuan, that is 71,500 USD, for allegedly violating the anti-monopoly law. On the 17th, Ant Group announced that it had voluntarily removed the internet deposit products from its platform. On the 22nd, the State Administration for Market Regulation of China held an administrative guidance meeting in which Alibaba, Tencent, Jingdong, Meituan, and other Chinese internet giants were asked to participate. On the 24th, Ant Group was again interviewed by the authorities, and the State Administration for Market Regulation announced the opening of an investigation into Alibaba's alleged monopolistic practices. Both are Jack Ma's companies. On December 30th, Alibaba's subsidiary, Tmall, and two other e-commerce companies were again fined 71,500 USD each by the authority for violating anti-monopoly laws. In half a month, the Chinese Communist Party has been hitting Ma's corporate empire like a storm. Fearing the same outcome, other online platforms have begun to retrench on their own initiative before the authorities actually take action. However, more worryingly is that Ma has not appeared in public since November. On January 1st, 2021, Ma was supposed to appear in person at the African Entrepreneurship Competition reality show led by his foundation, but he did not appear, and his photo disappeared from the show's website and related media coverage. Jack Ma was also the president of Hupan University. On December 10th, the authorities terminated the tender planning for the university's Yunnan branch. As we can see, none of these seem to be related to the so-called anti-monopoly law, but Ma has disappeared under the repeated crackdowns by the Chinese Communist Party. Jack Ma is known to many as a successful private business owner in China, and is widely seen by the Chinese as a role model for commoners working their way up to the upper echelons of society, even affectionately referred to as Papa Ma. In the last few months, however, as the political climate in China has rapidly changed, most of the positive stories associated with Jack Ma have been removed from the Chinese online platforms and replaced by official media attacks on how his corporate empire monopolizes the market. Public sentiment has shifted rapidly, calling him a villain, an evil capitalist, and a vampire, with more and more people leaving quotes from Marx under reports about him. Workers of the world, unite. In a widely circulated social media post, an online commentator wrote, "A good people's tycoon like Jack Ma should be hung to the street lamp," referring to the famous French revolutionary lynching slogan, "à la lanterne," meaning to the lamppost. The article has been liked more than 150,000 times on Weibo and has been circulated more than 200,000 times. As the disparity between the rich and the poor in China is serious, the anti-rich complex has been developing among the people for a long time. Now the official media vigorously promotes Jack Ma's monopoly of wealth, and it has caused the anti-rich complexes to explode in Chinese society. In fact, Ma's identity as a member of the Chinese Communist Party was disclosed in a 2018 list of candidates for recognition of 100 people who have made outstanding contributions to reform and opening up. The success of Alibaba cannot be discounted from the CCP's policies and financial support, nor can it be discounted from the efforts of Ma and his team. In China's murky political environment, Ma has made several statements challenging or criticizing the central government, which are rebellious to the CCP and may have sown the seeds of trouble.
全世界最富有的国家，因为我们的从小受的教育是我们要去解放全人类。结果到了澳大利亚，发现人家需要解放我们先。
Ma has been in danger for a long time, and he knows it. Last August, just a month before Ma announced he was stepping down as board chairman, a roughly 35-second video began circulating on the internet in China, showing Ma telling entrepreneur Liu Chuanji, the then CEO of Lenovo, that he had been poisoned and nearly died.
那来了你不唱歌啊？
没情绪唱歌，精神不好，状态不对。我前天还差点他妈的死了。
是吗？为什么呀？
药物中毒破产，我不好说，我差点。
我就是想听你唱歌呢，我觉得。
Later, unconfirmed reports surfaced on Chinese networks that Ma had purchased a home in a remote area of the US and was suspected of wanting to flee China, but officials used various means to prevent him from doing so. Ma announced his retirement in September 2020 with tears on his face. On the day Ma announced his resignation, his Alipay was also taken over by China's state-owned UnionPay. Chinese commentator Chen Bukong pointed out that Ma's control of trading platforms such as Alipay and e-money has threatened the monopoly of state-owned banks and violated the taboo of the Chinese Communist Party because of its widespread use. In fact, although China's economic figures are still good this year, many companies are heavily indebted, and there are many signs that China is in the midst of the biggest subprime crisis in its history. Beijing has issued at least 6 major economic reforms in a year, including the introduction of the digitalization of the RMB and new regulations on the financial system. Notably, the digitization of the RMB echoes the takeover of Alipay, Jack Ma's e-money platform. Many see the crackdown on Jack Ma as a move by the CCP to fight monopoly and create a more balanced market, but if one observes the CCP's approach in recent years, one can see that this is wrong. In response to China's economic crisis, Xi Jinping has proposed 2 policies in 2019: the state enterprise's advance, the private sector's retreat, and double circulation of the economy. Since 2019, many Chinese private companies have been forcibly acquired or controlled by the state. The founders of the 3 major technology giants, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, and Lenovo, have all been interviewed and announced their retirement afterward, and their company's shareholding and the board of directors are joined by state personnel. The China Securities Journal also found that the operating rights of 165 listed companies in China changed hands 60% more than in 2018. 44 of them were acquired by state-owned enterprises or government-owned investment companies with a total market value of about 17 billion USD. Most of them are in the high-tech, industrial, and scientific fields. State-owned enterprises also made use of the opportunity to list in China, Hong Kong, and even the US under the shell of private enterprises to buy sensitive technologies overseas, meanwhile exposing investors to Chinese debt. This is not the first time that the Chinese Communist Party has taken similar actions, as it has done on a large scale to nationalize private property since the establishment of the government in 1949, and in early 1956, at the height of its socialist transformation, it achieved a nationwide public-private partnership for all industries. In an interview, Mingju Zhang, a professor of political science at the National Taiwan University, said that the original development momentum of the Chinese Communist Party's infrastructure investment and real estate investment was no longer enough to continue to promote the economy. Coupled with the worsening relationship with the US and Europe, the Hong Kong issue, and the cover-up of the pandemic, a wave of foreign investment is withdrawing from China, angering the Communist Party and leaving them in a tough position. Again, the Chinese Communist Party would adopt the method of seizing people's resources, in other words, communicization, to extend their power in times of serious economic crisis. In fact, Jack Ma is not the first target of the Chinese Communist Party. In 2016 to 2017, a number of billionaires went missing during the anti-corruption campaign. Amongst them, Chinese-Canadian businessman Xiao Jinhui, the owner of Tomorrow Holdings, was taken to mainland China by a squad of Chinese security officers from his room in the Four Seasons Hotel in Hong Kong, and is held by the authorities until today. These billionaires may reappear sometime later, but some of them were never heard from again. Hong Kong tycoon Li Ka-shing, who has had very good relations with the Chinese, British, and Hong Kong governments, has been selling off his assets from China and Hong Kong since 2013, when the official Chinese media started spreading unfavorable news about him. In the 2019 Hong Kong anti-extradition law protest, Li Ka-shing published several advertisements that allegedly insinuated Xi Jinping, including, "Would it be necessary to pick the Huang Tai's melon?" A quote from the second son, Prince Li Xian of the Tang Dynasty, who advertised the Empress Wu Zetian not to kill every opponent after she seized power and leaving the way for others to live. Li Ka-shing, like Ma Yun, was once seen as a partner by the Chinese Communist Party, but as they offended the Communist Party, they were subjected to the same retaliation. The regime first smeared them with public opinion pieces and incited public sentiment, and then the authorities came in as a righteous figure and sanctioned them under the banner of anti-monopoly.
講走資，我只能夠講置之一笑嘅啫，即係連起碼嘅一般嘅知識都冇，呢個起碼嘅。你邊個能夠駁我？邊個能夠話你嘅賣件嘢，咁就係叫走資。
According to the 2018 financial report released by Lee's CK Hutchinson Holdings, by the end of 2018, the company's China and Hong Kong assets accounted for only 10% of the group's total assets, while its European assets increased to more than 50%. This has reflected Li Ka-shing's distrust of the Chinese Communist Party, and what happened to Jack Ma today somehow confirms his judgment.